Right. There's been a huge shift here, where in the 50s and 60s, early part of the 60s especially, universities were part of the McCarthyite thing, and they were, having professors sign loyalty oaths because there were professors in the Communist Party, and the Americans were very concerned about that. They were concerned about communists and the government and so on. And universities went along with that. Now, but then in the 1960s, of course, you had the triumph of the left. And ever since then, free speech has not really been the first thing that their first value. They don't really value free speech anymore. The left was a big champion of free speech in the 1950s when communists were being hauled up in front of committees, forcing people to sign loyalty oaths and so on. Now that they are in power, no way. They are not that way. And so I would say that in general, the people on the left are in the lead now in opposing free speech. And if you get one or two more, especially just one more Supreme Court justice that's on the left, that's going to be the end of the First Amendment.
Right.
Because people like Elena Kagan, they've already written opinions clearly supporting restrictions on free speech. And the restrictions they support have to do with diversity type issues, hate speech, so-called.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things they want to get rid of. And that would mean they would try to shut down the Occidental Observer. They would try to shut down Red Ice Radio and everything like it. They would, and take us off of Twitter and the whole thing. And you bet they would love to do that. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish organizations, they have routinely opposed free speech. Again, these same organizations in the 1950s were all in favor of free speech because so many Jews actually were brought up in front of these committees in Congress and asked about their communist connections. But that's not the case now. Jewish organizations are entirely on board with restrictions on free speech, whether it's in this country, Australia, Europe, Canada, wherever. This is the new reality.
Well, there's a couple of things here I think that's very important, the issue that you bring up. We're really at a fork in the road, at a point now in terms of the history of the internet where it could go one way or the other. There's a number of programs that are being implemented on the bigger sites, right? YouTube has this Heroes program, right, where they basically are trying to kind of outsource the censorship to create a community of these heroes, as they call it, that are going to be able to report. It's even this level system, which reminds you of some kind of initiation of a cult or something, where you can ascend up the levels, right? be like higher up as a hero that has 500 points or whatever. And if you get this, you can mass report videos and all these kinds of things, right? Remarkably, though, there was a tremendous amount of backlash so far. I think even the thumbs down on the YouTube itself, the video that described this, were like 98% negative, thumbs down on it. So people are aware of it. But Twitter, as you say, has started to censor. Facebook, we know for a long time, has been doing it. And even now, I think in just a couple of days, there's a potentiality that Obama might hand over the control of the internet over to the UN. So there's a number of factors here that is basically, leading to the potential great clampdown,
Certainly. And again, to mention the ADL, they have a program now that will censor it, and they try to give it to schools and with quite a bit of success, and parents and so on. But the ADL would love to be able to censor the internet. There's a lot of pressure on Facebook and Twitter and so on. Andrew Joyce is one of the writers at Occidental Observer, and he deals with Jewish issues. He's an historian, he's a PhD. And he got a Twitter account just a little while ago, like a month ago, and he started just posting, these pictures of Jewish activists in the academic world, and the media, and other areas. That's all they were, and he described what they did in a brief, 140 character limit. But he got banned and right away, and I was kind of shocked at that. Then they got back on somehow, but he's preventing people from forwarding his messages, from because that's what happened. People would forward these things, they would retweet them, and then they would get around, and the activists would come down on them. But that can happen. I guess Milo's been banned from Twitter,
right?
And that was just for saying things about this black actress. That wasn't even what you call racist or anything. I mean, she's not the most attractive woman in the world. Let's face it. and he said some things about her. I mean, maybe a little tasteless or something, but there you go. I mean, it's just amazing.
Well, Twitter have been priding themselves on the fact that they didn't censor, right? They didn't attack people. There was very much, it's good and bad with that. We understand that. There's, for example, there's people have, they can post pornography and these kinds of things on Twitter, unfortunately, but that just kind of comes with the territory, right? You can't just, shut people down because there's something you don't happen to agree with. So you got to take the good with the bad. But I think we're entering into a new period here right now. And it's going to be very interesting where this is going to develop, because I think the ascendancy of the alt-right, a potential win by Trump, of course, can actually turn that away. But let's assume that Hillary gets in. I think we're in a full clampdown mode at that point.
I am terrified of what would happen if Hillary gets in. I know that some people I've talked to, they have reservations about Trump. I get it. He's not the perfect guy, but my God. Yeah. You have to support him in the election here. There is just no choice. And this woman will destroy the First Amendment. And even that's a higher priority, I would say, even than guns or anything else for her. But the First Amendment is the critical thing, and they will shut down. They will censor Twitter. They will censor Facebook. They will censor it all. The internet has been the big chink in their armor. The alt-right thrives on the internet. It is a child of the internet, you might say. It never would have happened without the internet. You think back 30 years ago in the 1980s, you had people who would start up some kind of newsletter, and all they could do is mail it out in a brown paper envelope or something, because it was that kind of, you just couldn't communicate. But now, boy, this has been huge for us, and then you had the skillful, the Pepe memes and everything's, was really fashionable and attractive and cutting edge and all that. And it's exciting, but that's what a big priority for them is to shut that down. No question about it.
Very, very good. Now there's a number of other issues that I also wanted to get into with. We can continue, as I said, to talk more about Trump and how you see this. But one of the things I actually want to get into is, of course, kind of your main work of what you've been doing many years, which is to kind of observe and monitor Jewish interests, and also specifically how that relates in the modern era to issues like immigration and these kinds of issues. And I wanted to actually play a clip for you, Kevin, and get your comments on it from this organization, IsraAid. Lana and I did a video about this just the other week on our TV show, but I wanted to play it to you, and then we can come back and comment on this afterwards. So here we go.
Every day, thousands of refugees arrive on this shore. Most are fleeing the Syrian civil war, hoping to resettle in Europe. Waiting to help them on the beaches of Greece are the last people the Syrians might expect. Volunteers from Israel.
My name is Tali Shaltiel. I'm here with IsraAid, an Israeli-based NGO.
My name is Majida Kardosh. I'm here as a medical team. I work as a nurse.
My name is Iris Adler. I live in Tel Aviv. I just finished med school in Tel Aviv University. I came here through IsraAid to be on the coast as a doctor.
My name is Manal Shadi. I'm from Nazareth, and I'm the team lead of IsraAid in Greece.
Our job here is to receive the boats of the refugees that are coming from the Turkish side to the Greek side. There are many, many volunteers on the beach, not many medical teams.
On the line from the Turkish side, they're going through a lot of problems. Their smugglers there are asking them to pay between $1,000 to $5,000 per person. A lot of time they're just shoving them into boats that should fit 50 people, but there are 150 people on the boat. They just leave them midway through the sea and they tell them, you find your own way to Greece, we're not responsible on you. or they fill like half a tank of gas and they just leave them in the middle of the sea.
What we do is go to Hind Point with binoculars, searching and scanning the water, and you start looking for this black with orange dots in the view. And then it comes nearer and you start seeing the rubber boat and all the people on it. It's like 1, 2, 3, it begins. It's a few minutes of chaos. Taking off the babies, people screaming, shouting, helping them, you know. A lot of them don't know how to swim, they're afraid from the water.
Looking at the refugees so we can see who is in need of medical help, and I start shouting, "Min baddu doctor," who need a doctor in Arabic. And so this is the time that we start giving treatment. After that, we start giving them food and water, warm clothes, something to eat, to drink. After that, I take the map. We have a map that we translate on it in Arabic, explain to them what is the next step. You know, they don't know where they are, okay? So the first thing that I tell them that they are in Lesbos island in Greece, because some of them, they had like no idea where they are.
We brought a team from Israel, which is Arab speaking, and the effect was amazing.
Hearing your language is very important to them, and then getting the instructions where to go, what to do next, what are the next steps, because they have a lot of uncertainty.
And although Israel and Syria are technically at war, none of that matters here on the beach.
Usually when they get to the beach, they're just happy to see people waiting for them, giving them help and food and clothes and medical treatment if they need. Sometimes they realize who we are and they're just happy to see us, and they hug us and kiss us, and it's very exciting.
Men kissing me like I'm their daughter, you know, on the forehead, saying thank you, saying that I would never have thought that I'm going to receive treatment or be able to speak from an Israeli doctor.
All right, there's more, of course, to that, Kevin, but I find it pretty remarkable, to be honest, that Israel has the capability of going to Greece in this way and welcoming in refugees into Europe, while Israel itself has one of the hardest policies when it comes to immigration and letting people into their country. What's your initial impression of this?
It's so heartwarming, isn't it? It's just horrible. I mean, this hypocrisy, the Jewish hypocrisy on the subject of refugees and immigration is just astounding. And, you know, every Jewish organization in Europe, we've had articles on that in Occidental Observer, every Jewish organization in America, gung-ho pro-refugee, gung-ho pro-immigration. And as you say, Israel, you cannot simply go into Israel. They are not going to accept refugees. They have taken a tough stand on African migrants who've come up there. They have put them on airplanes and put them back to Africa. They, you know, as I said, they're at war with Syria, but they love the idea of Syrians going to Europe. And again, this coincides with the policies and the attitudes of all these Jewish organizations. Fundamentally, they want to have an end to Europe as a place for Europeans, and that's you know, it's their ethnic interests. And it's so nice to be able to clothe your ethnic interests as humanitarianism and altruism. But actual observing, I'd say we have 80-some articles on that, and we have a topic on that, Jewish double standards when it comes to this. Because you just can't find a Jewish organization that doesn't take a positive view about immigration, multiculturalism, and so on. And fundamentally, that's the big reason why they don't trust Donald Trump. They don't like what he said about immigration and about refugees. I mean, he's condemned Hillary Clinton for wanting to increase refugees by 500%. He has talked about a ban on Muslim immigration. And it's just, you know, it's just a radically different thing. And so, yes, we have explored this topic, and it's a, you know, I've often said to people, this is something a 4-year-old can see. A 4-year-old can understand that this is hypocrisy. That you want all these different people in European countries, You don't want the other people in Israel. You don't want a true multicultural Israel. And that's the hypocrisy. They don't really have universal humanitarian values. They have very ethnocentric values, very ethnocentric interests, and they pursue them. And what's astonishing is, and this is not the only case, where Jews have expressed their very self-interested, very ethnocentric motives. They've expressed them as the universal moralism. We are the good people. We're here helping those people. What's nicer than that?
We're the moral conscience of the world, I've heard some of them say, actually.
They will actually say that, that we are the chosen people. We are the sort of moral beacon of humanity. Use the word beacon. That the Jews are the sort of light unto the Gentiles. We are the light unto the Gentiles. And that's just part of this Jewish self-concept, that they're better than you, they're more moral and everything else. But when you look at what's the facts on the ground, they are the most ethnocentric people, and of course they're prohibiting other people from coming into their country. They will not allow that.
Yeah, as we said.
That's a great headline there.
Yeah, Israel's unwanted African migrants. Yeah, exactly.
And that's typical. I mean, how many of those articles have there been?
Hundreds, probably.
Hundreds, and they ship them back by the boatload, by the airplane full. They got them in prisons. There's a big prison with sky-high barbed wire in the south of Israel. I mean, this is just such hypocrisy.
If they really were genuine about their concerns, of course, they would take in much more to, let's face it, from Syria, it's much closer to Israel than to Germany and Sweden, right?
They walk across the border.
Exactly.
They don't have to get in those boats and risk their lives going across. Yeah, it's a joke. It's just something that, we see over and over again. And it's amazing how it's just like water off a duck's back. You can tell them this, and it's just like doesn't register. And I think that, it's a barometer of Jewish ethnocentrism. They don't understand. They don't process in their brain what's going on with that. The LA Times had a nice article on that.
Yeah, one country that won't be taking in Syrian refugees, Israel.
Right.
I wonder what that double standard is all about, Kevin. If there is it's been talked about, this idea that there's an issue with kind of projection. There's an issue with basically never having a position that what you do is ever wrong. You do something which is continuously in your best interests, whether that's maybe even unconscious in some instances, perhaps. But I think in many other, it is conscious, right? But as soon as you begin to point out the double standard, then we're back in the anti-Semitism branch again of things, as a making the argument illegitimate, right?
That is right. They call you an anti-Semite for saying things are obviously true. But it's the same thing with Jewish activism in this country. I mean, there's no question that Jews were critical to the sort of transformation in racial relations in this country, funding the NAACP, getting the civil rights laws funded and passed and so on. That's well documented. But again, that they portray that as being, humanitarian and good and all that. But in reality, they're making an alliance with another group that they feel they can join with against white America. I mean, they see white America and white Europeans as potential stormtroopers. They're potential Nazis, and they're not going to. So what they've done then is make these alliances with other groups, and so they want immigration. They want the more non-white people, the better. It's all about changing the ethnic balance, but of course keeping their own area, simply Jewish.
Yeah, genetically pure. It's almost a racial attitude, which could be likened to, how they would word it, to Nazi Germany, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you look at the early Zionists, they very self-consciously wanted to set up Israel because it would prevent intermarriage. They were concerned about how much intermarriage there was, say, in Germany in the early 20th century. And they wanted a racially pure area. Well, that's what they got. And in Israel, marriage is completely under the control of the Orthodox rabbis. Conversion is very, very difficult for somebody who's not Jewish. But if you can prove your Jewish ancestry, you don't have to be Orthodox to get into Israel or marry or anything else. This is all a genetic thing. So they are very much into racial purity in Israel. And that is, again, this is one of the main reasons why Israel was set up. Concern that there was too much assimilation, too much intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews. So this has just been going on a very long time. And what they've done, though, is managed to put out the idea that it's those Europeans that are the racist ones. And, and any European that says, well, I'm concerned about the future of my people. I'm concerned that with all this interbreeding, we're going to lose our pure types and all that. That's just the worst sort of thing. Racist, eugenicist, all that sort of thing. But Israelis do it. In fact, there's a lot of eugenics research in Israel. They want to improve their gene pool, and they want to make it easier for people to have children who might have trouble not having. So it's again, you almost run out of words to describe this. It is hypocritical, certainly, to say the least.
Yeah, one of the big organizations, I think they're worldwide, but they're working very hard in the U.S., is HAIS. It stands for Hebrew Immigration Aid Society.
Yes,
and they have they're very active. They're kind of, they have all these tentacles that they tie together with all these other groups or whatever. But one of the interesting things is that if you go into the Eurasian branch on their website, they have details here. Same thing there. They are detailing Greece specifically, that they're working in Greece to make sure that immigrants can come in. Ukraine as well, Austria. But interestingly enough, there's nothing about Israel here or helping refugees. Because what I've heard them say, Kevin, is that, as Israelis, as Jews, we can identify as refugees, right? Because we've been the diaspora and all these things, which is, again, we're back in the hypocrisy bracket here, because there's nothing about them aiding and helping people coming into their own country. And the excuse for that, by the way, is, well, we're a small population and things like, well, there's European countries that have much smaller populations. Sweden, Norway, Denmark, even Holland, the Netherlands, I believe, is smaller.
So they should admit a proportional number if that's what they really think. But they don't. I mean, they just will not do that. The HIAS started out as an organization that was aiding Jewish immigrants back in the early 20th century, I believe. And then when that was not an issue anymore, they simply switched gears and started supporting anybody else coming into this country. So it's not just refugees. They want to maximize the numbers of non-white immigrants. They are one of those groups that is on a huge problem, because they well-funded as usual, well-organized, well-connected politically. And this is a big part of the problem.
Yeah, and it's also no talk that I've heard so far of actually repatriate many of the immigrants that are coming to, or the refugees, I should say, migrants, right? That they come to Europe to seek a better life. There was even, was it the National Geographic's, I bet you saw the front cover, the New Europeans, of all the Syrians. They had this photo spread. I'll show it here in a minute. Just amazing, all these interviews. But these are seen as the new Europeans now. There's no talk of them ever returning to their country again.
No.
What is this about? What is it about?
That's right. And that's in general true. When they talk about refugees, they don't want them just to, come there for safety and go back home. They want them to settle permanently. And everything is going to be set up in order to encourage that. They want the demographic transformation of all European countries. All countries that identified that would have been considered white countries 100 years ago, they are all targets. There's not one that has escaped this, really. And that's quite a picture from Time magazine.
Yeah, it's National Geographic's. They did a similar spread a while back on the New Americans, or how they thought that the population in America would look in 20 years or 2040 or something like that. Same thing there. It's basically, while all these other people can still have their ethnic group and their, Syria is unique, I've said this before, due to the fact that, yes, it's being destroyed and bombed, but they still have a population of their own in their country. It's not like Syria is being flooded by immigrants. They can still return to Syria if they wanted to,
Yeah, the same with Africa. I mean, if you said, well, let's have an African country, they're not doing very well economically, we should, import like 20 million white people, and then white people would be the majority in an African country. That would be considered the most racist thing you ever could imagine, to think that you would transform the demographics of an African country in the direction of white people. But, with this thing, this really colonization, and when you see how aggressive, especially these Muslim organizations are, they really want to impose a Muslim society. And all that means for women, all that means for the whole society, and really all that means for the biological fitness of Europeans and the end of their culture. No one can seriously believe that when whites become a minority, we're just going to carry on as we always have in terms of our institutions, in terms of our rule of law, in terms of market economies. All these things are products of Europe, European civilization, European genius. They are not going to survive when you import people from radically different cultures who are then make up the majority. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's true. It's very, very concerning. It's an issue that plagues me every day. I think about it. I worry about it. I see it. I see Sweden changing, and I have this fear that it will never return back to what it was. In fact, there was actually an ad. I'm sure you saw it. This is kind of a summary of many of the things we've already covered, but it was called A New Country. Let's actually play that, Kevin. We can talk about it afterwards. I see it as psychological warfare. I see it as basically imposing a vision on our European countries of basically reaching a point of no return. Let's just take a look at this.
Det finns ingen väg tillbaka.
Sverige blir aldrig som det varit.
Europa är i förändring.
Och Sverige behövs som en trygg plats för människor på flykt.
Nu måste vi söka vägar framåt och hitta ett sätt för alla att leva tillsammans.
Det är dags att inse att nya svenskar kommer att ta plats.
Med kultur, språk och vanor.
Och det är dags att se det som en positiv kraft.
Att vara svensk måste få vara mer än hudfärg och födelseort.
Det måste få vara du, jag och alla tillsammans.
Det är inte bara nya svenskar som ska integreras.
Alla behöver integreras, även etablerade svenskar.
Integration handlar om ömsesidighet.
Låt oss skapa en framtid
som bygger på lika delar realitet och framtidstro.
Låt oss bygga ett land
där vi sätter hat och rädsla åt sidan.
Vi har alla det nya landet inom oss.
I våra synsätt, tankar och handlingar.
Det är dags att vi tillsammans formar ett land
som är stolt, inkluderande och hållbart.
Något nytt. Det nya landet.
I mean, I just see it as psychological warfare, propaganda of the highest order. There's no Swedish males hardly in this. They're talking about inclusiveness, and they're talking about how this is going to be the new vision of the country and everything else. But it's a very clear vision that, of course, just entails basically some younger Swedish women, but mostly older Swedish women, and then all these other people from Somalia and Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and all these places. This is hate, in my view, Kevin.
It's horrifying. That video, I'd seen it before. They're expecting the Swedes to adjust to these people. And as they say, you got to get rid of fear. We have to hope. It reminds me of Obama, hope and change. I think these liberals, people on the left, are always talking about we have to hope for a better future. Things aren't working out right now. Sweden has become the rape capital of the world. We have high rates of crime. We have no-go areas. We have hostile Muslims who want to impose Sharia law as much as they can on whoever they can. But it'll work out, and we have to be inclusive. We have to hope that this is going to work out in the future. That's the message, and it's pathetic, and it is destructive. It's hate. Hatred against the traditional people and culture of Sweden. They are perfectly, they look at that video. they are perfectly willing to jettison the entire history of Sweden and their people and their culture and sacrifice it within 1 or 2 generations on the altar of hope that this might work out. And of course, they just hope that it will. And if you don't think it, if you have any doubts about it, well, that's fear. That's irrational.
It was like, you're damn
crazy.
right. You're damn right. I'm afraid, and that I'm concerned.
Should be afraid.
Exactly, should be afraid and angry and everything. This is this basic idea that somehow your default emotions are wrong. They're trying to gaslight us, as they say, into this vision that if you have a reaction of common sense, if you have a reaction of somehow feeling impulsively or instinctually that this is wrong. No, it's those emotions that are wrong, in fact. There's something wrong with you. We need to reprogram you. It's a form of mind control, really, brainwashing.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to enter your brain, top down, see those images, and make you feel immoral and a bad person. I think Swedes especially are have a big tendency to be concerned about being on the right side of moral issues. They don't want to feel that they are a bad person. And that video, among many others that I've seen, they're trying to show that if you don't have those beliefs, there's something wrong with you. You're bigoted, you're overly fearful, you're irrational. This is all going to work out. And it's just silly for you to be concerned that when people are oppressing women and all that sort of thing, that shouldn't be relevant anymore. That's their culture or something. It's just amazing, and I just hope in the future we can look back on this as a insane moment that we overcame. Sweden, like all European countries now, in order to turn this around, it's going to have to be cataclysmic. Because there's so many of them there, and they're so aggressive. You can't just say, well, we tried this, you got to go home now. It's going to be very difficult, and it's going to be a huge upheaval. And perhaps only violence can really deal with it. But it's just completely unfair and to the people of Sweden that this is going on.
I think we should point out as well, Kevin, that it is violent now. It's violence against many of the local native people of these European countries and America too. I mean, this is just something that isn't recognized. As soon as you begin a level of pattern recognition, of noticing, it's a war on noticing and paying attention, basically.
So we're noticing. On Twitter yesterday, somebody posted a graph, and it's from Sweden, and it showed the chart of immigration by year, and then it showed a line of rape, the percentage of rape of going, and they're going up exactly at the same rate.
That's right. Yep.
Rape is correlated with immigration, and somehow Swedish feminists are going to be the first to say, well, you're a racist to oppose all this. They value diversity and inclusiveness and being on the right side of this immigration and multiculturalism issue more than the obvious interests of women. Women are the most, victimized here. If you're a woman in Sweden, I wouldn't go out at night by myself.
No, and police discourage them
I'd be worried
too.
even with my boyfriend, unless he's got a gun and knows how to handle himself. I would, it's definitely something that women should be thinking about. And yet notice that ad, it's directed at women. And women have such soft hearts. And women, even more than men, are concerned about being considered morally suspect. Women really do not want to be thought of as a bad person. And so a lot of the ads, pull at the heartstrings. Remember that photo of the Syrian child on the beach in Turkey who drowned? I mean, that was a sensation. And why was it a sensation? It's pulling at the heartstrings. This is a victim here. It's a child.
That's right.
When a child was in the street down in Marseille, I guess it was, or not in Cannes, the area of France where there was a slaughter. There was a child lying in the street there, run over by the truck.
Yeah, we did. We hardly saw that picture.
That.
Yeah, hardly saw that picture.
That's nothing. It's not important.